Hi guys, my name is Kelsey and I'm going to be talking about the Rolling Stones. So, the Rolling Stones were formed in London in 1962, with the original members being Brian Jones, Ian Stewart, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Dick Taylor, and Tony Chapman. They took their name from a track on Muddy Waters' debut album, and so what happened was that Jones actually named the band himself while he was on the phone trying to book a gig. He was asked for a band name and he just glanced down and saw Muddy Waters LP and he saw one of the tracks named Rolling Stone Blues and he just said Rolling Stones and that's how they got their name. They played their first performance at the Marquee Club in London on July 12th, 1962. They soon landed a steady gig at the Crawdaddy Club in London. Bill Wyman then replaced Dick Taylor as the new bassist in December 1962, and Charlie Watts replaced Tony Chapman as the new drummer in January 1963. So, the Rolling Stones were influenced by a few artists and genres. They were influenced by the American rhythm and blues artists such as Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and Fats Domino, who are pictured here on the right. They were also influenced by jazz artists such as Miles Davis, who is also seen on the right. Their first single was actually a cover of Chuck Berry's Come On and Muddy Waters' I Want to Be Loved. They went on to create their own sound by experimenting with instruments and writing rhythm and blues mixed with rock and roll. They soon began to become more popular and eventually got a manager whose name was Andrew Oldham. They signed with him on May 6, 1963, and he had actually been helping promote the Beatles. So, this new manager changed the spelling of the band's name by adding a G, so instead of Rolling Stones, they are now the Rolling Stones. He saw the band as the anti Beatles, so he wanted to create a raunchy, crude, and offensive image for them. And down here is just a quote by their manager. It says, I decided that since the Beatles had already usurped the clean cut choir boy image with synchronized jackets, I should take the Stones down the opposite road. Rejecting matching clothing was one step, emphasizing their long hair and unclean appearance was another. So, in England, they reached a national audience through appearances on the British television shows. They hit number 21 on the British singles chart with their cover of Come On. They then met the Beatles, who gave them the song I Want to Be Your Man, which neared the top 10 on the British chart. And for their first album, they got 100,000 advance orders, which I think is pretty good. Their British success was mostly stemmed from their youth and good looks, appealing to UK baby boomers. And so in the US, their first tour wasn't what they thought it would be. They mostly played to empty seats. For example, in Omaha, Nebraska, they played at an auditorium for 15,000 people, but only 600 people showed up. However, their second tour was a bit more successful, and it began on October 24th, 1964. And during this tour, they played to much more enthusiastic crowds. And they also appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show while in America. And by doing this, it introduced them to American teens. And they faced a lot of criticism from adults. However, this pushed rebellious teenagers to follow the band even more and allowed them to gain more popularity. So, the Rolling Stones' 1965 mega hit, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, hit number one worldwide. It was a mixture of rebellion and irreverence, using urgent guitars, tribal drums, forceful harmonicas, and sexually tensed vocals. it seduced the young but alarmed the old. In 1966, Paint a Black hit #1, helping them secure their rock star status. Jagger and Richards proved themselves to be a strong songwriting team after they wrote these hits and went on to write even more songs. So at this point in their lives, they were living like rock stars, which meant they were abusing a lot of drugs. So in 1967, Richards, Jagger, and Jones were all charged with possession of drugs. And so by the late 1960s, they had become the bad boys that they once promoted themselves to be. And unfortunately, Jones was not only addicted to drugs, but his mental health spiraled out of control. So by 1969, the rest of the band members could no longer tolerate Jones. So he left the band on June 8th, and just a few weeks later, Jones drowned in his swimming pool on July 2nd, 1969. And as they did more drugs and started partying, their concerts were raucous enough to lead to a number of citations against the band for causing concert violence. So, as many people know, the Rolling Stones are fashion icons. So, in the beginning of their career, they wore ratty sweaters, rumpled jackets, and ill fitting trousers, which made them look like college students. And they soon transformed their look radically, and they also changed their look constantly, and they eventually just made the stage their runway. They laid the groundwork for punk, dandified mod, pushed psychedelia to its cartoon extreme, and basically invented glam rock. They weren't afraid when it uh, came to gender bending, so they weren't afraid to wear more feminine style outfits, which I think is pretty cool. And they weren't afraid of extreme fashion statements. Exhibitionism, the Rolling Stones, was a show displaying the largest collection of their outfits that they wore at shows while on tour. And it first opened up in New York, and it went across the nation. And yeah. So I'm just going to talk about the Rolling Stones today. They're actually the longest performing rock band of all time. They amassed 8 #1 singles and 10 consecutive gold albums. They're in their 70s currently and still perform, tour, and record, which I think is incredible. The No Filter tour for Europe announced in May 2017, and then it was extended for the UK in July 2018. They announced the US part of the tour in November 2018, and it was to begin April 2019. However, Mick Jagger had to undergo heart valve replacement surgery, so they rescheduled the tour to begin July 2019 so he can recover. And these are my references, so that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a little bit more about the Rolling Stones.